So there are the obvious ways to save money. I have done plenty of videos with long lists of things. But there are a few topics that I've thought about that I put together that are things that other people usually don't think about that have big impacts on how they spend their money, how they save, what they decide is of value to them. So in this video, I want to talk about 5 important money tips that people usually don't think about. And maybe one of these, or hopefully more of them, will open up your mind a bit and it could help you in your financial journey. Number 1 is friends. You've probably heard the saying, you are like the 5 people you spend the most time around. You tend to do what the people you spend time around do. In the extreme example of this, though, you might think of someone who has a very destructive habit. And if they're trying to stop that destructive habit, one of the tips that they're given is to get a new group of friends. Don't be around that group of friends that does, on an often basis, that destructive habit that you are trying to remove from your life. It's the same thing when you're thinking about finances. Now, that's not to say that we throw away those people, that we don't love and honor our friendships, but you might need to put some distance between you and that person. The other thing about friendships is oftentimes friendships come and go in our life when we are at different stages in our lives. Sometimes when you decide to make a change for the better, that friend may not like that. They see that as, this is not what I agreed to when we became friends. This is not the person you were. And sometimes when you're trying to make a change for the better and they're still doing the habit that might not be great for them, it makes them feel worse about doing it, rather than you both doing something that isn't wonderful for you, but you're supporting each other in that not so wonderful habit. I had this happen to me. I had a friendship where it was solely based on us going and spending money. We would hang out, we would go get a manicure, pedicure, have lunch on the weekend, and then go to the mall. That is what this friend and I did. Often. This was before I had a child and before I got my finances under control. Obviously, this was not good for my finances. And then I've mentioned this book before. I read this book and my entire life changed when it came to how I spent my money. And it was Love Your Life, Not Theirs by Rachel Cruz. It's one of the best books that I recommend for anybody trying to remove the emotional spending. But this is how that friend and I bonded. And so when I read that book, and after I read that book, I started changing my habits. I created a budget. I started to say, I'm sorry, I can't go shopping. And that friend thought that I was slighting them, that I was not wanting to spend time with them. The fact is, I didn't want to spend time with them with that activity, with going and shopping and spending all of that needless money that at the time I really needed to save. What we found in that friendship is that that's all there was. There was no other substance to that friendship. And that's okay. We both went on our way and we've moved on with our lives. You have to find people that you align with, or perhaps that have the certain values that you want to become. That could even just start in books or podcasts or finding someone online. And I don't mean in the idea of finding friendships online. There are wonderful people online, but I'm talking about finding people online that you like their values. And I mean people who have thoughtful things to say, thoughtful things that start making you think about changes you could make. Now, this might be all that you have for the meantime while you search out for quality friends around you that you can spend time with, that you can bounce ideas off, that do align with your values. Number 2 is your financial identity. And I know that word identity is a very big buzzword these days, but in this video, we are only going to talk about it in the context of money. One definition that I found of identity on Merriam-Webster says that it is the distinguishing character or personality of an individual. You may have heard some people say one of these next things I'm going to tell you, or perhaps you've said them yourself. Have you ever heard, I can't save money? I'm bad at managing money. I will always be broke. I don't know anything about finances. Maybe even, I don't invest because I don't understand it enough. What you need to be careful of is what you say you are. What you anchor yourself in and to is very important. If you anchor yourself to an identity long enough, you build very large root systems in that identity. And those root systems then become even harder and harder to change. Be careful what you say you are. What you anchor yourself in and to is important. If you anchor yourself to a bad financial identity long enough, you build large roots that are really, really hard to dig up and change. Think about what you say you are, who you say you are. Really, is that all you are? Are you only that one thing, that one identity? So when I hear somebody say, this is what I am, think about things and characteristics of your personality that have changed over the last 10 years. So be careful what you want to root yourself in. You can imagine if someone has been told and or told themselves for long enough that they are bad with money, and they identify with that as a leading characteristic of who they are, and they lead conversations with that, then that provides a huge roadblock for them being successful in the future. A financial identity is mutable, which mutable means liable or subject to change. Simply changing a few words about what you tie yourself to by saying, I was bad with money. I have been bad with money. Not I am bad with money, can make a huge difference in how your circumstances lay out for you in the future. Number 3 is not considering the long-term effects of short-term decisions. Immediate gratification leads to a hit of dopamine. Dopamine is a chemical in your brain that's released, and oftentimes it's called the feel-good hormone. And sometimes you get it when you buy something. You might feel this rush of happiness. But what happens is if you use this as a way to feel that happiness, then over time you need more and more or larger and larger purchases in order to give you that same effect. And yes, today you might say, I can afford that payment today. That works just fine. I'm making enough money. I've got all these bonuses coming in. But what happens if you lose your job? Anybody who lived during the recession that we had in 2008 understands that instability. The fact that you might have to take a job half your current pay just to have income coming in. And that could happen at any time. So short-term thinking has long-term side effects. Let's say you eat out a lot. You get to go coffee often. You are constantly consuming, meaning buying things always. These things may seem small today, this week, this month. They might just be small purchases on Amazon, or I only buy a few things a month. But if you keep this up day after day, month after month, year after year, you look back and you think, wow, if I had only saved that money, I can't even remember the joy I had from those weekly coffees or what I bought 2 months ago. How often, though, have you heard people say that? If I had just done this, if I had just saved that. Well, why don't you just start making the decision to think about long-term effects of short-term decisions now, rather than being one of those people who says, if I had only. Number 4, not saving because you say that you can't afford it. Hear me when I say to you, you cannot afford not to save. If you don't make the sacrifice today to save for tomorrow, the small pain of today and sacrificing and saving money is going to lead to a much bigger, a huge pain later. Think about the example of someone who spends their active adult life working. They decide to spend. They don't save much. They just live it up. And they get close to right before retirement age, and they wake up one day and they suddenly get smacked and think, oh crap, what am I going to do? I actively know several people going through this right now. The thing about saving is, even if it's small amounts, I've often said one of my biggest tips is, unfortunately, most people hear you need to save 10 or 15% of your income, and they think I can't possibly do that right now with the cost of what things cost and what I'm currently making. It's not about a certain percentage because everybody is at a different spot in their life. If it's $5 that you start out with, that's $5 more than you had. But the thing about starting out now and even starting out small is it's so much better to start out small and do that consistently over many years than getting to the close to retirement age and trying to save huge chunks in only a short few years. The fact is, with modern medicine, there is a huge likelihood that you will live past your working years. Don't neglect the future you. Number 5 is underestimating small habit changes. It is the small habits that actually lead to compound results. It takes small changes that give you quick results, which give you a quick sense of accomplishment that ends up giving you the desire to continue on that path and add on a new small change at a time, which over the long run makes huge strides. Large changes are super hard. Big impacts and changes in your daily life are very hard. But when you find a small change and go along and start making them and start accomplishing them, what happens is you start seeing that the continued changes that you make start to get larger and larger. So decide something small that you want to change and replace it with a new behavior, perhaps. So an example of this would be your go-to coffee, your to-go coffee. You always go get coffee out. Instead, buy a nice, reasonably priced coffee maker and start making your gourmet coffee at home. Start getting really into how to do that and perfect it on your own. This one small change will lead to the next, and before you know it, you will look up and notice you've become one of those people that saves a ton of money. Let me know what you think are some money saving tips that people often don't really think about. Put them down in the comments below. I love hearing from you. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you have a fantastic week, and I look forward to seeing you next weekend for a new video.